Hey everyone, it's Michael Sapersky and welcome back to another episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. Today I'm excited to be joined by Phil Alves. Phil, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so you're the CEO of Dev Squad. You're a 90-person boutique consulting firm that focuses on SaaS products.
Yeah.
Some of your clients include companies like ADP, Box, the US Ski Team. I know a whole bunch of other well-known organizations that you can't talk about because of NDAs and all those other kinds of things. But I mean, you've kind of led the build out of over, I believe, 100 plus kind of software products. So you've been doing this for quite some time. But I thought we get started today talking a little bit about what you were doing before Dev Squad. So before you actually started this business, what was your background?
Yeah, so I sold a SaaS business, a small SaaS business that I built when I was still in Brazil. I ended up using that money to move to the United States. To get a student visa, you have to prove that you have a certain amount of money in the bank and that you don't have to work for a couple of years. And that's kind of like what I did. I moved here already knowing how to develop software, and I did some freelancer for different people, and I ended up getting a job. And first as a senior developer, then I ended up leading a team. And that's basically what I was doing. And I realized there was a big need for development teams that actually think, that just like heads or hiring guns, but people that come and that can think strategically and think about the product. And so that's when I decided I would leave my job and try to run this company. And I originally, my plan was to stay very small. I want to have like one squad and like personally lead that squad as like the technical product manager and product strategist, and have like a team of like 4 to 6 developers and a QA, and then that would be the team. And then we would be able to work with like different customers, be very selective, and just help them take products to market and do like rescue. And so that's how I started. But eventually I realized that could be scalable and I could replicate that. And that's when I even rebranded, because originally I was just SLC Dev Shop. My whole plan was to stay local, to work with the market here in Utah. So SLC stands for Salt Lake City. And when I realized I could scale, I went and I bought the domain devsquad.com, paid a bunch of money for, and then that's when we tried to replicate that one squad that work into.
Do you remember how much you paid for the domain name?
It was well over $20,000.
It was, yeah. It's a good solid domain name. It's a nice one. Let me ask you. So you came from Brazil to the US. How strong was your English at that point?
Oh, it was horrible.
Well, so I'm asking, right? Because I had an experience over a decade ago of moving to Japan and kind of opening up a branch office for our consulting company at that time. And I remember like it was extremely exciting. I loved a lot of it, but there were also a lot of challenges, right? I was a foreigner. I was still learning Japanese at that time. Learning the culture, and just even though I'd been involved with the culture and know many Japanese people, it was still a real challenge. So I'm wondering for you, what was that like coming to the US, right? You're now operating in a new language, it's a new culture, and you're not only just trying to survive, you're trying to build a business in that environment. What was that like for you?
So actually, I learned the culture and the language first. So I got here, and then I was going to college, but I realized that even though I spoke English well enough to get into college, it wasn't well enough to look and to do business and to be able to communicate in the business world.
Right.
But I was able to just, at the beginning, I was just doing freelancer work and just doing the work myself, and people would be happy to hire me because I knew how to code. They could talk to me and they could like use a paper and draw what they need me to do. And then on my job, like when I was leading a team, again, I was like absorbing the culture and learning and learning the language. And then it was only after I had a grasp on the culture and the language that I decided to start to start Dev Squad. Of course, as a foreigner, you're always going to have an accent. It's never going to be perfect, but I was already very comfortable with the language and the culture by the time I decided to run a business and start a consulting firm.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great example. It's to show. I mean, you can create success, right, regardless of you're in a new location, different culture, different language, right? If you want to do it, you figure out a way to make it happen. So, and look at where you built it to today. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you had a bunch of different jobs. You decided, I'm going to go off and start to create this company, build this business myself. When you decided to start Dev Squad, how did you get your first few clients? Like, I know you said you were doing some freelancing, but when you think about the first kind of major client for the business, where did they come from?
So I had a website, and the first big customer that made me quit my job and go full time was actually the US ski team. And what happened was they reached out through the website. So we rank on the 3rd page of Google. Somehow they were very patient. I kept clicking through it. And then they sent an RFP for a project. And I was like, oh, that's an amazing opportunity. And then I want to meet with them to ask questions, and I want to do a POC before the deadline to send in the actual proposal. So by the time I sent the proposal, I had already presented the POC. I had already established a relationship with these people.
Just explain POC for those that aren't familiar.
Proof of concept. Okay. So like we built like a piece of their software working for the hardest part of the problem they were trying to solve. And I was like, okay, look, I can solve. Of course, this is just a proof of concept.
Sure.
I think it was about like 3 weeks or 4 from the time they reached out to the time the actual proposal was due. And in that time, I was actually working on the product. I was working on building a relationship. So I wasn't like just writing stuff on the paper, because I didn't even feel like I was strong to do that, like to know like how to write and how to make it beautiful and whatever. It was more about showing our work and building a relationship with our stakeholders at the organization.
Do you think the fact that you were actually building and creating something that was tangible was ultimately what led them to decide to work with you, even though you're on the 3rd page of Google? Was it that, do you think like you just took more action and kind of showed them more value up front than others did?
Yes, for sure. Like he really took the opportunity to show a lot of value. And like I had like 2 or 3 meetings with them before I submit the proposal, and the actual proposal was working software. Now, granted, to the stage that my company is today, we don't do that anymore.
Well, you don't need to, I'm guessing, because you have enough kind of recognition in the marketplace that and enough large clients. But I think early on, like the lesson there and the opportunity for so many is to have that mindset of just like over delivering or taking an extra step beyond what maybe other people would be, and therefore it's hard for a buyer to think not to engage with you if you're showing them so much value up front. It's like, well, imagine what's going to actually happen when we start paying this person or this company. Okay, so that makes sense. So you landed that engagement, and the business kind of started from there. Just fast forward a little bit. If we push that button to the last couple of years inside of the business, and even to today, what are you doing from a marketing perspective to generate new clients, inquiries? What does that kind of business development marketing side of the business look like today?
Yeah, so it's all inbound. So everything that we get as far as lead is inbound. We do LinkedIn, we do Google Ads. I run a podcast too, so that's where a lot of our leads are coming from.
Yeah. And so when you say sorry to interrupt, but is the podcast the biggest source or one of the biggest sources, or kind of like break down for me a little bit of, you have people coming to your website through just SEO, finding your content or whatever, or finding the website, you have the podcast, you have Google Ads. What would you say is the kind of overall percentages of the different channels and the percentage of inquiries that each of them are driving?
I would say SEO and Google Ads are probably 60% of everything that we get. And then paid social is another 10, and then the other 30%, it's going to be split in referrals. The podcast is pretty new. It's only a year old, but I already generate business. But a little bit from the podcast, and Yeah, so that's kind of like, but like the foundation, it is Google. The foundation of like what we do is SEO and pay-per-click.
And when you say SEO, just for those that maybe aren't as familiar, not in terms of what it is, I mean, search engine optimization, but is this just focusing on creating articles and kind of long form content that is around a specific topic, or do you have a different approach to doing that?
That's exactly that. And I think another part that's important that we're very big is on CRO, which is conversion rate optimization, right? So like when we start, we didn't say, hey, we are a SaaS consulting firm. We help you build SaaS products. We were just, hey, we're a development company. I mean, everybody's a development company, so that's not great. Great, congrats. But then we start to like what we really like to do, what we add the most value, where's the market that we play. So we have to like went and figure out who our customer was, what products we like to build, and like really work on the messaging. I think that a lot of our work in marketing was around the messaging, because you can put a bunch of people in the website. If the message is wrong, or if you're putting the wrong people in the website, it doesn't matter, you know?
So it's such a good point. I mean, I say this often and definitely see this a lot, where with consultants, you know, call themselves like, I'm a marketing consultant or a management consultant. It's like great, like so is everybody. So I mean, what do you actually do, right? What's different about you? Tell me a little bit about the Google ads. What kinds of keywords there are you targeting, or how do you kind of think about Google ads in terms of like, what are you trying to accomplish with those? Where are you trying to reach people? Is it people that are early on in their journey, or is it people who are like, they have the budget, they're ready to start building today? What are you kind of thinking when it comes to advertising on Google?
Yeah, I think advertising on Google is about capturing demand, meaning I'm not going long keywords of people. They're like looking. Google is very smart, the way the systems are built nowadays, and because they know like the last 20, 30 searches that you made, it knows when you're ready to buy. So our whole strategy is around capturing demand, it's being in front of the person that it's ready to buy. We don't have any like, hey, here's a white paper, here's the download this, download that. Our call to action is let's get on the phone, because we are about capturing demand. It's not about generating demand for Google. For Google ads per se. For Google, for SEO is different. You're trying to stay upper in the funnel, and I stay in the top of the mind for those people. So that's very different. But for Google ads, we're spending the money to close the deal.
Got it. You mentioned about kind of the messaging that early on, you know, you just, it was much more general, didn't necessarily work. Is there anything else that you've tried from a marketing or business development perspective to generate new leads and inquiries that are qualified that maybe you tried and just did not work at all?
Oh, so much, so many stuff.
The list is long.
You know, the old saying, half of the money you spend in marketing is wasted. They probably don't know which half is the wasted one.
There you go.
So like we try everything from cold email and outbound, and in the beginning actually was work for a little bit, but it's kind of hard. Like the mentality of the customer that comes, it might be a little bit different. Let me see what else we tried that didn't work. Even with Google Ads itself, we went after keywords that were the wrong keywords. You know, so we try Quora, we try Twitter, we try we try pretty much everything. We try newsletters, sponsoring newsletters, and none of those result in anything. And I'm always trying. Actually, I have a portion of our marketing budget that it's for exploration, and I don't get frustrated if I lose that money, because you know, like the markets are changing, and you don't want to be so dependent on one channel. So I'm always testing channels and trying to figure out if this works or not. More often than not, it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, but that also means you're one step closer to kind of eliminating that, and you know, to finding something that does work. I think that allocation of budget, you know, for experimentation is just a really great idea. And kind of takes us to my next question around just overall budgets for marketing. Do you have an established budget where you say, you know, X percentage of our overall revenue or profit we're going to use for marketing types of initiatives, or is it more just kind of free flowing where you try and find something that you think you want to test and you give it a shot, or how do you kind of think about the allocation of budget towards this?
No, it's established budget, but I establish based on last year's. So like, how did last year, how profitable you were, whatever,
Mhm.
and then based on that, because I try to spend this year the money that I made last year.
Okay.
So that's kind of like how I run my business.
Yeah.
And so we do have a set amount for marketing, and then we track closely that we are trying to stay on track with our budget.
Can you give us an idea, just whatever you're able to share, but in terms of like what percentage you allocate towards marketing?
It's over 7 figures that
Okay.
we're putting in marketing.
All right, you're giving me more info. I was wondering, like, is it percentage, is it 10% or whatever? But okay,
Now if I give you a percent, you're gonna know my revenue. So I
yeah,
won't give you a percent.
exactly. Whatever you're comfortable with sharing, as I said, Phil. But okay, so you are making a significant investment into marketing on an annual basis.
Oh yes.
Okay.
It's our biggest investment. Right. Consulting firm, I feel like you only have two costs: people and marketing. Like those are the biggest two expenses in my P&L.
Yeah.
It's my people is expensive, and so is my marketing.
Got you.
And I need my marketing to keep my people busy.
There we go. Yeah, chicken and egg, right? Or the two are directly connected.
Yeah.
So let's shift to maybe something that's in some ways more recent, but just kind of looking at the current economic situation, the uncertainty that some people are talking about, or certainly the news and media are, whether you choose to kind of accept what you're hearing outside or not. Some people are just choosing to kind of ignore it. But I'm wondering what are you seeing? Because some companies right now are finding that organizations are pulling back on their spend, or they are just being more cautious. Others are seeing fantastic growth in their business. What are you seeing right now in the marketplace, given your focus around SaaS businesses?
Yeah, I definitely have seen this space being affected. I think specifically when you think about Q1, everyone is super worried. So the people that were already investing, they would keep investing, but they were like a little bit more iffy. Like I had a whole meeting internally with the team, like make sure you don't drop the ball, because everyone is on the edge, because everyone is hearing and it's seeing like different things happening. And then it was like less customers coming in for sure. And it did have some customers that were like funded by VC that end up leaving.
Right.
But as we lead now into Q3, I actually have been seeing for us a recover, because a lot of companies that did lay off, now they realize they're like, oh shit, how are you gonna get this work done?
Right. Right.
So they're like, oh, but they're also afraid of having like W2 employees.
Right.
I personally think we are starting the golden aging of consulting firm, because companies in this economy, they just had to do layoffs, and they're like a worry of having to do that over again. And so they're more likely to just outsource and to bring someone where it's a little bit, the risk is not with them.
Sure.
So I actually have been seeing things speaking up for consulting. For SaaS itself, not, but we are not in the SaaS business. We are in consulting for SaaS. I mean, I do have a SaaS product, but I really do see things picking up for consulting firms now in the second half of the year.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think there's still, it's an interesting environment, but there's huge opportunity for consultants and for those that know how to approach things and how to build a business. Massive opportunity now and going forward. So the space of serving SaaS or working with SaaS companies, and this applies to everybody regardless of whether they're in SaaS or not. I mean, you're not the only company that works with SaaS businesses, right? So how do you think about creating an advantage or differentiation, given that, again, there's others that provide similar types of services? What's been your mindset towards that? What kind of actions have you taken? What have you learned?
Yeah, so our mindset, it's about, like, what we like to say is that we do product level thinking. There's a lot of development companies out there, but most of them, they're just order takers. Right. They take your order, they take to the other side, take your order, take to the other side. And especially to stick with right now, the competition is higher, because someone can hire my consulting firm for development, or they can hire ex-Googler, ex-Twitter, because all those people are in the market looking for jobs. So the competition is a lot higher. But the way we try to differentiate is like really being the partner to think about strategy, development and design out together. I just don't want to be like another development company, right? I wanted to combine everything, and to help our customers think big picture, to push back, to think about how to take the product to market, and to actually have processes and have a culture. Because I believe most consulting firms, or a lot of consulting firms, end up not having a culture, just having like working with each different project, and like just at a point being not a real consultant, but just a work per hour. And so we really try to establish ourselves in the space of a real consulting firm. And there's not a lot of consulting firms. I like to say that in the development space, all that you see is a lot of like glorified staffing agents. And that's not what we are not. We are not a staffing agents. We don't change. You can't come to me and say, hey, I want a developer that code this with this many years of experience. I'll be like, yeah, that's you to make a hire. If you come to us, I'll tell you the developers that I have, the technology that we can work with. It's about the products, about the strategy, it's about thinking big picture, and that's what differentiates us.
So, at what point do you communicate that kind of differentiation? Is it from the point that people see your ads? Is it in your content? Is it on the website? Is it only really discussed during a sales call? At what point are you communicating that differentiation?
To the whole funnel. I hope that when they show up to a sales call, they're already sold.
Where would they see it? Just kind of give us an example, like walk us through before somebody even jumps on a call with you or somebody on your team. What would they potentially be seeing that would help them to see or kind of experience that differentiation?
Yeah, from the homepage of the website, we are talking about the differentiation to our case studies, to the content of our ads. So everywhere it's the positioning is all different.
Okay, good. And in terms of sales calls, are you the one right now? Like, are you doing all sales calls? Do you have a team that does this? Kind of, what does that sales process look like?
Yeah, at this stage, I do all of the calls. We got a bunch of leads. Most of them are disqualified by email. I'll send an email to them to get some additional information before jumping in a call to kind of protect my time. Sure. It was funny, just last week, someone was super mad at me, and he was like, I guess you value your time more than you value speaking with new customers. I'm like, dude, I get like bunch of leads every month, and I want to make sure I don't waste your time and my time. But he was super frustrated because I sent a follow-up email asking questions. But after I'm able, and I have all those templatized on our CRM, so I end up only taking like a handful of calls every month with people that are very highly qualified. And
what are you looking for? Because that qualification process, I think, is so important, right? It's not uncommon for people to waste a lot of time talking to the wrong people. What have you learned? What do you look for to really qualify people before you spend the time to get on a call with them?
Yeah, like my goal is when we build a product is that we can take the technology risk to zero. So I like to build actually boring B2B SaaS products. Are you using the video of this later or no?
Oh yeah, I'll see you're back. Yeah, we're gonna use the video, but that's all okay. A little technical issue. Don't worry about it.
Okay, let me see. Sorry.
All right, so just back from a little technical glitch there, and yeah, Phil. So keep going. You were talking about how you qualify or disqualify people, and what you're kind of noticing there.
Yeah, so I was explaining that our goal is to reduce technology risk to zero. So there's different kinds of products. Some products require just engineering, and some products require some science too. Engineer, there's like A to B, and that A to B is guaranteed, and that's why I love being in the engineering space. As much as we talk a lot about marketing in this podcast today, I love doing marketing for myself, but not for other people, because there's no way to guarantee they're going to get from A to B when you're talking about marketing. Now in software, there is many times. So our customers are usually looking to build like a boring B2B SaaS product, like boring this space that like maybe they're building a SaaS to help, like, let's say in the case of ADP, to help people that are hiring do a better job and manage their hiring process. So there's not a real risk, technological risk there.
Mm,
So we were looking at also, I wanted the founder to be a real industry expert. Like,
mm.
does he understand the industry? Why he's building a product for the industry?
So just
And
sorry to interrupt, Phil, but sometimes people, when they think about qualification for calls, they're really just looking for, is the buyer, does that buyer have the ability to invest, right? Like, are they an actual buyer? Like, so are they from a large enough company, or does it seem like they have enough money that they can make an investment? Are those factors that you look at, or are you not paying as much attention to those and focusing more on that, the risk or limiting the risk around technology?
oh yeah, that definitely the first disqualifier. Do you
Yeah,
have the money? But having the money alone doesn't make that person the right fit to work with us.
sure.
And even when we get in the sales call, my second slide, it's about the right fit, and it's about what works for us, how we
Mhm.
do, what doesn't work. And like, because I believe to be successful, you have to work for the right customer, especially in like in a boutique firm like ours. So it's a lot about making sure the customer is a fit to what we have to offer,
Mm,
and to what he's trying to build, and it's similar to the stuff that we
right.
did before. Like, of course, it's going to be unique for his market and everything, but the technology and the things behind is not going to be uh, overwhelmingly different than anything else. Like B2B SaaS is very simple, and there's a lot of money to be made in B2B SaaS. You know.
Right. So again, with that sales process, and I'm thinking now about pricing as well, sometimes people in technology, or especially in the development space, if they might find that as they're speaking to a buyer, they're spending a lot of time kind of getting all the documentation, or like getting clear on all the different technology pieces. So they're investing a lot of time up front without necessarily having a signed agreement and getting paid. I'm wondering, what does your process look like there? And also, I'd love to get a sense of how you think about pricing your projects. Is it based on hours? Is it based on some other form of time, like day rates, or is it a monthly retainer type of fee, project fee? How do you approach that as well?
Yeah. So we like to work on retainers, but sometimes we also do um, SOWs with project fees, specifically with big companies, and like, we never ever close a deal, but sometimes we send SOWs for the government.
Right.
Um, so things like that. And your first question was about how we make sure we are not wasting time. We charge the customers for that, so it's very productized. We
Hmm.
say, hey, there's two things that we do. Basically, we do product design and strategy, and that's custom, and that costs X per hour. And I can give you, we'll send the agreement, and we start with like 100 hours, and then we go from there
Right.
to do the strategy and the design. And then from there, you can get a development squad, that we would charge a monthly retainer depending on the size of your squad. It's a squad with 2, 4, 6 developers. Every squad has to have a product manager, has to have QA, but you need to add designers. And what's the complexity, the technology of the product that we have to build. And that's how we do our pricing.
So you're kind of allocating, you're saying here's kind of a team, a squad that you're going to get to come into, the business, or to work on the development of this SaaS,
Mm-hmm.
software as a service. Uh, is this reliant on, I guess what I'm wondering is, what happens if in any given month the buyer doesn't have as much requirement? Uh, does that roll over, or do they just they forfeit that? How do you kind of approach that, since it sounds like you're using a bit of a kind of retainer monthly payment for the team to be placed?
So when I start talking to customers, that's one of the qualifications. It's for them to understand the software is never done.
Mm.
If they are running out of work, they're doing it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You never heard that Salesforce didn't have work for their developers,
Right.
or the QuickBooks didn't have work for their developers. You have to understand that if you're going to build a product, that's a commitment of development forever. I will tell them, you're going to be paying us, or you're going to be paying somebody else. But the day you go on that journey to build a software product, you're going to need developers, whatever. So that's the mentality that I want our clients to have, and the right customers, they're going to always have more work than what we can do in 30 days. So that's the mentality of like, I'm going to build a project and I'm going to be done in 3 months, and then I'm going to be in maintenance mode. I never ever saw that work. and a SaaS B2B product, that might work for an internal product, but that will never work when you're actually trying to build a digital product.
Yeah. Is there anything from a pricing or pricing strategy kind of side of the business that maybe you've changed or you just learned, like you did something, like version B and now you do version D just because you've learned there's a better way to do it? Like any lessons, mistakes when it comes to pricing that you've implemented?
Yeah, it's kind of like full circle. So when we start, we try to do the project-based approach, and it didn't work. We realized
why didn't it work? Yeah.
Because like the customer was in one team and you were another team. We went to do the least we can. The customer to put the most they could. They were like less sophisticated customers too, because we were starting, and we got whoever we could get. And we'd always end up in that situation where we were like losing money in a customer doing more work. And so we move out of project-based work and we went and we do just retainer. And when we moved to retainer, we never lost money. And then the company grew. But then bigger companies start to come to us and they don't buy shit on retainer. So, and then we lost a bunch of those deals because I was like, no, this is how we work. And some of them were actually even flexible enough to, okay, we're going to work with your way because we really want to work with you. And then I kind of like went full circle, and now we have both offers where we do have the project-based, the SOW offer. But the way that works is for bigger companies, is actually more money. They need a guarantee, but they're for them it's about being predictable.
When you say they need a guarantee, what do you mean? You mean like they guarantee a certain number of hours, or
they need to make sure that if I spend X, I'm going to have my product. But their X is very big. You can often build 2 products with their X. Okay. But they prefer to know that's going to cost X than for you to tell that's going to be month to month and it's going to be done whenever. So then we end up to learn like how to actually proper scope for those bigger organizations and how to keep the SOWs small. Right. We like 3 months SOWs because that way you can keep agile, and then we just renew another SOW and go from there. Right. But that was a big lesson though for us.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, when you were at that place where you need to make the decision, you're doing retainers and you don't want to change because you like retainers are the way to go, but the big companies that doesn't work for them, and you ultimately made a decision to introduce both options. So we can either go the retainer route or we can go the project-based route for the larger organizations when they're not okay to sign up for retainers. Did you have a concern that like, hey, aren't we introducing a lot more complexity into our business? Like now we have to service 2 different ways of operating, different ways of accounting, or different ways of billing. How did you kind of think about making that decision in terms of the long-term benefits? Or
so actually I work a lot with my lawyer to try to make our SOWs fit in a way that we could keep working in the same way that we would keep working. Okay. At the end of the day, we like, hey, we think this is gonna, if we were doing this on a retainer, we would be do this in 6 months. We're gonna add 3 months for safety. Mr. Big Companies, it's gonna be 9 months, and this is how much you're gonna charge you. Right. But we are able to run the operation very, very similar. Okay. And to like do the milestones every 3 months. But like for everyone down, of course, accounting is different, legal is different, but for everyone down, it's fulfillment is pretty much the same.
That's smart. Okay, so you're able to find a creative solution to essentially keeping the train moving in the same direction, but just adjusting kind of the paint or the shape or whatever else you want to kind of say. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. And then just a couple final questions here about hiring, because I mean, you built your team to 90 people. So it's a really good sized company, and you're in a market where there's a lot of demand now. Given the last few months or period of time, I mean, a lot of large tech companies have been going through layoffs, so there is more, or there are more people looking for work. But just even historically, if you go back over the last several years, this is a space where it's oftentimes maybe hard to find really good people. What have you found? What have you learned when it comes to hiring A players or just very talented people? Where do you go to find these people? What do you do? What do you think about to make sure that you're able to bring them in?
I believe, again, if you're in the consulting firm model, I study a lot like the big consulting firms and how they do it. So you actually have to grow your own people. You know, you have to have the systems in place, the leadership in place, so you can hire people, and they will be able to excel inside your engine, and they'll be able to grow from there. So like, and that's where it's very important. That's why I don't change our processes for every single customer. And it's very important that I choose the right customer. But to answer your question, you were just getting very talented people that have some experience, but that we are helping them and you're growing them. Or even if you hire like a senior person, we still see that person not coming ready. We hire people and we have everything inside the company to train and to grow these people, and we do the outside too. Like my CTO, he has a YouTube channel. He has a live every week where he's showing people how to code. We build like a kind of like a thing around him where like people, he's an authority on the technologies that we work with, and that makes it super easy because people want to work for him. You know, they want to work with him. And so, and then, but I think it really has to be about getting the person from associate to consult and bringing that person up. Another thing that I tell people is like, hey, look, a consulting firm, it's not where you're going to stay forever. Like there is a limit of how much I can pay you, because I have to have X margin. And at some point you leave. But if you stay in a consulting firm for 2-3 years, you're going to be so much better at what you do, and it's going to be for you paid learning. And that's part of like how we influentiate people to stay here.
So you just talked about your CTO, which I found really interesting. Is he or she an owner in the business, like an equity owner? They are. Okay. And do they have a good chunk of equity, or is it a smaller piece? Like, and the reason I'm asking this, Phil, is I'm wondering, you know, you said they're kind of building their brand, and that is benefiting the company. You don't often hear, like usually the person who's building the brand around them tends to be the leader of the company, like tends to be kind of the, you know, the number one person, if you will, or the majority owner. And that becomes, you know, so we take like Gary Vaynerchuk as an example for his, you know, media company or whatever, right? Like he's the brand, and that now helps the company and everybody inside of the company. So is he more the face of the company, like external facing, or are you, or how do you kind of?
We split because there's two things that we have to do in a consulting firm. We have to attract customers, and we have to attract talent. We talk a lot today about attracting customers, and now you're talking about attracting talent. So I'm responsible to attract customers. So when I'm doing my podcast, or when I'm like doing my newsletter, whatever it is that I'm doing, it is about attracting customers. His job then is to attract developers. You know, so everything that he does is to become an expert and an authority in the developers. So the developers look to him, and designers look to him, whatever. So this is how we split, because I couldn't have both breaths.
No, that's smart. So you kind of divide and conquer. And you have very clear areas of focus. All right. So Phil, a couple more questions, then we'll wrap up.
Sorry, my camera got horrible after
switch. You're okay. No problem. So here, I mean, you're a leader of a 90 person company, growing, doing very well. What are one or two things that you do on a regular, daily basis, maybe, that you feel really contribute to you being able to show up at a high level of performance and really get things done? Any habits, things you're doing on a daily basis?
I think lately I have been paying a lot of attention for my health. I wake up every day, go to the gym before I come to work. That helps a lot. And I have hobbies.
What are the hobbies?
I love cycling. I love flying. I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So those are the three things I do. So I'm a pilot. This is my airplane over here.
There we go. Nice.
It looks, this is kind of like a mock of the actual real one.
So for those that are just checking the audio, make sure you check out the Consulting Success Podcast YouTube channel. Then you can see Phil's airplane here. He's showing us the model of it. Nice.
So, and then I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as a good Brazilian.
There you go.
And cycling. So, and all those things, like so many times, like I'm on my bike, because you never stop working as the founder. And then I have ideas, because you let your subconscious do the work.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's so true, right? Like I find them for myself as well when I'm at the gym in the morning, or I'm out for a walk. that's when the clarity, like the breakthroughs come, where I just, you see something very vividly. Whereas if I'm in the office here, standing in front of the computer or whatever it might be, I don't have those moments as much. I think it's so important to get out and not only take care of your mind and your body, but also just, as you said, when you're in that different environment, really good ideas tend to come forward. So
yeah, that's something that I learned, like we have to trust our subconscious more, like, because our mind knows what it's supposed to do. So like many times you're like here in the office trying to solve the problem, then you sleep, and the next day, or you wake up in the middle of the night with the solution. So if we start putting things in place to give your mind like a break and letting it work in the background, like that's kind of like I think in computer, like you send the job, dispatch the job, and it's going to be doing the processing. I think that's very important, and that's what happened when you go in a walk, when you go cycle, when you go do whatever, you let your mind does what was designed to do. Because if you're sleeping, whatever you're doing, your mind's always working.
There we go. All right. So second to last question. In the last 6 months or so, Phil, one book that you have read or listened to, anything come to mind for you? Just again, could be fiction or nonfiction, but just something that you would recommend that you think others might enjoy.
Yeah. So the last book I read was super good. Now the name disappeared from my head. Hope you can edit this time when I'm going to look for the book title.
No, it's all good. Listen, this is the real stuff, man. We
don't. So it's called Creative Selection.
Creative Selection?
Yes, it's about how the team that built the iPhone and Apple work, and the guy that built the keyboard, and how Apple used to run in the times of Steve Jobs. And
by Ken Kosienda.
Yes, it was such a good book. It's a newer book.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the book.
We'll link that up in the show notes. So Creative Selection by Ken Kosienda. That's a new one. The name sounds familiar, but I have not, definitely have not read that. So
yeah, I read a bunch of their books, like for the economy right now, Misbehaving, the making of behavior economics. That one's super cool too. Okay. So anyways.
There we go. And then finally, Phil, I want to thank you for coming on, spending a bit of time with us here today, sharing a bit of your story. There's so much that you've accomplished, so much that you guys have going on. I want to make sure that people can learn more about you, your company, and the work that you do. Where's the best place for them to go and check it out? Is it just Dev Squad?
Yeah, you can go to devsquad.com. I'm also at Alves.com, PHALALVES.com. And yeah, from there you can send me an email or sign up to my newsletter.
There we go. Yes, so we'll have all that linked up in the show notes, devsquad.com. Phil, again, thanks so much for coming on.
No, thanks for having me.